just a lady's little desk with a chair. All of this is from Maine. When we went up to get to see the house, they had called and we had to wait till it warmed up because she died in the middle of, the aunt died in the middle of the winter. And when we got up there, the house smelled because it had been closed up. The refrigerator still had food in it that was terrible. And the house smelled awful. And the boys, the oldest was 5, did not like the house at all and they didn't want to be in it. So we had to rush to do what needed to be done. And so we had an antique dealer who was 90 that came in and told us what pieces to take. And the rest was put in an estate sale. After paying the attorneys and everything, we got a check for $57. And that was our biggest stake. Well, this is called a perfume case by someone that called it that. And it is a cherry wood piece. And it's, as I said, they made special crates every time we moved to put this in, and took special insurance so it would get here in good shape.
When Jerry and I were first married and bought our first home in Long Beach, we had furniture. We had a card table, 4 card chairs, and 2 other chairs. And that's all we had, and a bed. And that's all we had as far as furniture. And my dad took us down to Laguna Beach and bought this painting for us. And so we had a painting, beautiful painting in the room with 4 card chairs and a card table. That's all we owned. And the painting has a special meaning to us because of where it came from and how it came to us.
When we lived in Saratoga, they had an art show downtown, and we bought this piece, and she was a local artist. Her name was Helen Caswell. And when G and Pinky came out to see us, she loved this and wanted one. So we called and went over to her house, and she and her husband entertained us, and we had a wonderful evening with them. And she turned out to be a PEO. I don't know that, but anyway, then Pinky has 2, or did have 2 of those of her works, but now she shows her work in Carmel, and her work is quite expensive, and it has to do with children, and she does a lot of, our next door neighbor did one of their own children, portraits. This was just one that we liked.
This is a beautiful Holy Bible, and it has maps and everything in it. And then it is the history, and finally it gets into Genesis. This came out of my mother's home in Maine and New Brunswick, Canada. This is an old family Bible, and in it is the history of the family with the names and all written in here. And that's our family history. And it goes back to an article here that talks about the Whitlocks, and it says that the Whitlocks that it speaks of in this article that had died, that their parents were both loyalists and settled in St. John, and then moved to St. Stephen. And they were part of the loyalist family, and then it tells other family members in the article, and this is the family history in this Bible.
We were inherited this by an aunt by marriage in Maine, and the history of it, we only know that there's a copy of it over in Winston-Salem in the house in Old Salem, and we have a paper on the history of the artists, the sculpturists that did it. When we got it, John was up on business and brought it back, and when he brought it back, Brian did not like it at all, and I put it up on the mantle because I didn't want the boys to be able to hit it with a ball or something. And he would come in, and if it was facing the right way, he would cry and make me change it. And he must have been 3.5 or 4. And so I would do, every once in a while, I'd turn it around thinking that he wouldn't notice it, and he always noticed it. Never did like it, and I doubt that he likes it to this day.
Jerry's father was a school teacher, and this was his school bell.
The interesting story about this is I inherited this from my childhood and adult close friend, and she left it to me by my request when she asked what I would like. This woman was a friend that Mary took around. She was probably about 4'2", and she never had any children, but she and her husband loved the missions. And evidently he was a wealthy person because they went around the world, but they didn't go to see sights. They went to visit missionaries in different countries. And she would pick up a piece from each country in an antique store. And this is one that she picked up and left to Mary. And I inherited it. So it's a special, special piece, and probably has a great value to it because she lived to be 90 something.
On my first IBM trip to Europe, I had to go to Helsinki, to Switzerland, and Jerry suggested that I get a little clock, cuckoo clock, for the boys' room while I was there as kind of a memento. So I went into a large clock store in Zurich, Switzerland, and the lady took me up to the 3rd floor where they had nothing but clocks. And this clock, well, what happened was that I said, I just want a little one. And she said, okay, do you want it to have a ring? And I said, yes. And then, so she kept moving me up, and I got to this end, and it has a cuckoo and it rings, and it does everything. The little dances go around and that. And it was probably the most expensive one they had in the store. And when I got through buying that, after going in for a little cheap one, she then said, you don't have a wristwatch, and sold me this wristwatch that I still have. And anyway, she took all my money.
These was my 25th wedding anniversary gift. I had wanted Christmas dishes probably for 10 years, and John kept saying that they were not practical, they could only be used once a year. And so, but then when he said, what do you want for your 25th wedding anniversary? I said, I want the Christmas dishes. And so he had to go along with it then. And we probably have used them more than we did our other china.
This is an old payphone, and the interesting thing is it has a slot here where you put your quarters, nickels, dimes, quarters, 50-cent pieces, and silver dollars to make a phone call. And pick up the phone, you ring it, the bell rings, and that's the way you used to make phone calls.
This was Mother's china that she got right after the war. She wouldn't get it while the war was going on. So when the war was over, she got it. And it is from occupied Japan at the time. So it says occupied on all of it. And there's a place setting, and then there's one piece that she doesn't have is the gravy boat. But other pieces, she has them all.
This is a ship my family came from England on as it's pulling into Ellis Island, New York. And here is a list of the passengers that were on it. And my grandmother and grandfather and my father is on this list.
You belong to a club and you got these two pieces. And at the time, about 12 years ago, I took them to an antique show and had them appraised, and they appraised for $650 for the pair. But during my age, you stood in line to get some of these.
This is the original staff of Ideas Unlimited, which was the first international conference for executives that IBM put on. It was also the first conference where the wives were invited, and we sent them all down to Niagara Falls for the day, and we took care of the men. Anyway, this is the Canadians and Americans that put that first conference together.
This is my dear friend Alice calls one day in the middle of the day.
We were living in Atlanta.
From Connecticut, and they were living in Connecticut, and they'd had a storm, and she was out driving around and she saw a barn sale, and in the barn had fallen down. So she went in to stop to see about it, and there were two mantles there. And the guy said, "I've been saving these for my son, who bought them from a place in a hotel on Manhattan." And he said, "I've told him to come get them and he won't, so I'm selling them each one for $75. So she said, "Send me a check for $75 and I'll buy you one." So, and she said, "With us moving around like we are with IBM, we'll get them to you." So it took probably 8 years before, because we were back in Dallas. And he said and they had moved since then. And so she had taken and had it remirrored, the mirrors redone, and had some work done on it. And we paid $200 to have it shipped from New York to here. And we stuck it in here with the idea of making it a fireplace. But we never, it was the time that we were facing college expenses, so we felt like that was an extravagant thing that we couldn't do. So therefore we never did have it made into a fireplace in our bedroom.
Well, there was a certificate. We were invited to go to a dinner that he hosted, and at the end he came around and I asked him to autograph this, and he did. My mother wrote a letter to Norman Rockwell.
Well,
and I don't know what she said, but he responded in April of 1960. And this is the envelope with the 3-cent stamp. This is the return address. This is my mother. This is Jack Johnson.
this piece was a desk that my brother had gone in to work for a furniture company out of Fort Smith, and it was a new profession for him, and so my mother was concerned whether he could make it or not, and so she went down and bought one of his first pieces of furniture from him. And this was the desk, and Pop used it for many, many years, and then when he died in the 80s, my brother took it back and kept it until he died. And my dad loved sardines, and so they found a tin to put things in that was a sardine can, and it's in this top drawer to keep paper clips in. And it has the key that was part of it.